Hello all and welcome to the Left, Right and Somewhere in Between podcast. You're listening to your host here, FS, and I'd like to introduce the gang. Steve-O, we've got Ada and we've got MT.
G'day.
Hello, g'day. Hey, Ian, can I ask you a question before we have you pressed record yet? just wondering.
Yeah, it's recording.
We just want to this is the first time we're doing this, so we just want to make sure we get everything right. Listeners, welcome once again to the podcast, and we appreciate your time for listening. This podcast is going to be about blokes for blokes to have their say, have their opinion, and release that pressure that they need to of every day. Let's introduce the crew. Steve-O, let's start with you. How are you today?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Steve-O.
So, a bit about me, I guess, where we're from, our background and so forth. So, I was born here. I'm Australian, but my parents were born in Italy. So, we grew up with the whole making the sausages and prosciutto, and Dad used to make the wine back in the day as well, and we used to do the tomato sauce. So we did the whole thing. I've had that background. I've been doing that for quite some time. Didn't like it when I was young, but grew to love it as I got older because I realised the importance of family and getting together. So it's been a great thing to experience through my life.
And when you say you've gotten older, so what vintage are you talking about wine?
Over 50.
Ooh, over 50.
55.
I am 55, thank you.
That's a perfect vintage. It's a perfect vintage, Steve-O. Just gets better with age.
You can't even say that you're halfway through your life because it means you live to 110.
And so that's a brief about Steve-O. So Ada, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a very good-looking 51-year-old. I'm told I look a lot younger than I am. First generation Italian, I had Italian parents. Coincidentally, they're the same ones that Steve's got. Collingwood supporter. I am a father of two amazing children, both in their around 20. My son's 19, daughter 22. I'm a divorcee, and just living life.
So you've got a very, very different, and it'll lead me to my first question. But you've got a very different life than Steve-O, which is interesting.
Yes, we do.
And MT, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm the oldest statesman here, so a lot of this sensible stuff will come from me. Married, two kids, 110, 120. Yep, you heard it right, 110, 120.
Yep.
I've had a couple of goes at it. And
A couple?
All right.
A couple usually means two.
Yeah, okay. Maybe more than a couple, but they're just numbers. And 10 and 20-year-old, yes, I don't know what else to say about myself. I am a Collingwood supporter, that's true. We do make sausages and salami at home, and I'm the person who's sort of in control of all that. I'm the glue that keeps that.
Oh, my God.
What was that? What was that? Who said
What do you mean?
The glue that keeps it all together.
What?
As you can hear,
I think you should call yourself Tickets.
Tickets.
as you can hear, there's a sibling rivalry happening in this very room. So it's unfortunate you can't see it at this stage, but you one day you will. And for me, I'm the youngest of obviously this group. I'm in my early 30s. I have two children, and one child is 2, and the other one is 6 months. Popped them out early, starting early, hopefully for an early retirement. Fingers crossed. But I'm also a Collingwood supporter, so this may come to haunt everyone once the football finals start to come around.
And can I chime in just quickly? Two of the most beautiful looking kids you'll ever see in their life. I don't know how those two people made those two beautiful children, especially looking at FS's head. I just don't know how that happened.
But how young is Fred with a 6-month-old? I've got a boil on my arse older than that. Seriously,
It is I am a young chook, but this it raises a valid point. One of the things I wanted to raise with you guys, and I think this is a very important one, is that life and environment can provide a different flow of how we develop through our years. You boys all grew up in the same household, all experience the same things, but all have different lives as you see right now. What do you think? A question I want to propose to you guys is, what do you think is a contributing factor as to what guides you into doing different things in your life, although you boys are very close in age and you also grew up in the same household with the same family?
I guess working careers did probably threw us into three different paths completely. I worked with Steve-O worked with me for a while when we were in hospitality in a kitchen environment. Steve-O worked with us a couple of times throughout my career. He came and chopped out. And then when I finished hospitality and got into a job where I could go and play sport, I dragged Adrian with me to there. Then Steve-O joined us as well for a period of time there. So Ada came and joined us at cricket, playing cricket. Then we played footy together. So though we sort of disappeared into different parts of our life because we all got married, we were all different things back then, a couple of kids and all that sort of stuff. And then, you sort of bring back around again when certain parts of your life change and you sort of hook up again and do things again. And we're always going out and about. We're always at the pub or we're always at the footy and we'll tend to go together. So it sort of brings you back around together again. But we did take three very different paths. Not just careers, but I think in everything we did in our lives early on.
Yeah, I think because we've all managed. There is also another brother. He's the oldest one. There's four of us. Mm-hmm. But between the four of us, we are so different, but we've all found common ground with something. Mark and I are probably more sports orientated. Mm-hmm. Probably enjoy beer more than the other two. Whereas Steve-O and I, we've got that.
I enjoy the beer. I'm just not good at it.
Sorry, you enjoy a beer. Yeah. Anything after that is not enjoyable.
I'm not good at it, but I enjoy it.
Especially to the people around him.
It doesn't enjoy you.
And I guess Steve-O and I, we growing up, we found common ground in stuff like sci-fi. We're Star Wars fans and that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's how it is. We all managed to find common ground, and that's why we all get along. We hate each other, but love each other too.
But what's amazing is no matter how much time we spend apart from each other, the moment we talk or get together, it's like we only spoke or saw each other yesterday. Is that thing? I think a lot of people experience that, but it's that's a really cool thing.
Because one of the things that people tend to ask and question is for families that have twins. They get raised roughly the same. They're in the same environments, same parents, same teaching structures. But at the end of the day, their lives take different paths. And one of the paths I think with today's modern living and modern thoughts is that there's obviously a lot of strain on females in a sense that they raise families, they bear children, and they develop these children, these people as a primary caregiver. But as a male, there are an additional stresses, from a sense that a male is a provider, a male is a protector, a male is a supplier of love and care and giving. As fathers, we're all fathers here. What do you feel that there are extra pressures placed upon us, not just as men or as family men, but as society plays it, saying that we as men need to not speak out and absorb the pressures and pains of the world, as opposed to a female who can become emotional and exert that to the people around them? What are your thoughts on that?
Do you think that's changing though? With in the media, there's been a lot of talk about anxiety and reaching out to people. I think the younger men, I think, are probably changing that a bit. I think they're starting to speak out and say that they're suffering from anxiety or stress. I think back in our day, it was seen as a weakness and you pushed it away. How you did it and what the outcome was different and the same for everybody. So I think that growing up now and being a bit older, I can see my kids growing up. And they are in touch with their emotions. They're able to express that to me, which is great. So I can help them out. But when we were growing up, it was very different. It was difficult.
It was very much a suck it up princess mentality.
Yeah.
You didn't have a choice. You didn't get a chance to talk.
I honestly don't feel that it's going to be that simple though. I don't think the next generation are going to. They're not going to nail it.
No,
but that's the same for women. I think there's women out there that don't know how to express themselves just the same.
It's going to take a few generations to get to where where we should be.
But I think though with what's out in the media, the younger ones are starting to grasp it that they can if they
Yeah, absolutely.
they can. I think it's the older ones you'll find that are probably still struggling with it.
So as we mentioned, Steve-O, you've got children. Ada, you've got children. MT, you've also got children, and you've got children in that bracket of 15 through to 25, right? That's the new generation, the new flow of people in this world, the leaders, the future leaders of this world. Yeah. Do you feel that that tide is changing with from what you can see in your own backyard with your own children? Yeah. Do you feel that they're gonna try to sway the way of the old country, I guess you could call it, with that hard mentality and make it into a more loving, sharing, caring mentality, which is probably what society is tending to and should probably become? Or do you think that life pressures, as we know it now, will overcome their own inhibition to create them into the father figures that we all are to our children as we speak today?
A change like that has to be generational. It can't be. It happens to you as you get older, though. So you change as a person as you get older. Things like the stresses of life. As you get older, the financial side becomes a bit more of a focus because you're looking towards the end of your working career and you're thinking, am I set up? Have I been set up? Have I done the right things? The emotional stuff comes in on the back of that too, because then there's pressures on making sure you have got the finances sorted. Your personal pressures are always going to be there, and it's always about external. Sometimes it's internal, but it's generally external when something else happens outside your family. That's what affects you internally. And you also get to a certain age, and probably 50 is about right, where you start to look and go, have I done anything special in my working career? What have I succeeded in life? Yeah, you may have kids and you look at them and go, great, they're old enough now, they'll look after themselves. But that's where all that stuff, all that questioning starts to happen. And, in more recent times, we've lived through 2 years of murder in COVID, and a lot of people mentally struggling. A lot of people coming out of that mentally struggling. And I think we're only starting to see the tip of the iceberg now coming out of it when things are starting to go back to normal, where some of that's starting to, I guess, bubble to the surface in the background. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that come through in people who are potentially in that window, maybe younger too. I do always say, social media plays a lot of responsibility in young kids where they're focusing 24/7 on those bloody screens, and what everyone writes about them or what they read is so influential, and the tiniest thing could trigger an attack or an anxiety attack. I've never heard young kids talk more today about having anxiety or being stressed or being worried or being whatever it is, and it's due to a lot of that social media stuff and the expectation.
But don't you think that's also like society accepting that, like encouraging kids to express their feelings? We weren't encouraging our day.
Not at all.
I think that plays a part as well. I agree with what you're saying, like social media, and is responsible for a lot of that. But also, they're taught to talk and open up, and so I think.
But if they're taught to do that, then why is it that it's so difficult for them to, or are they being taught to be open, and now we're hearing more about it?
Well, let me ask you this question.
Is that where it's coming from?
When you were a kid, what were the pressures on you to not speak up or to speak up? I mean, you're in a playground and these kids picking on you, and you either stand up and fight or you actually back down. Okay, and so in that instance, there's no mobile phones, there's no internet, there's nothing.
No.
But it's the same situation, and it's people, and it's the young people back then, it's the young people now.
It was safe because at 3:30 it all stopped.
That's right.
That's true, and
So you only have to worry about it
and that's the
between 9 and
difference. But the thing
3:30.
is, what I'm saying is what I'm trying to say is that it's the people, it's the young people.
Absolutely.
They're still young people,
Yeah.
and they're still growing, and they're still learning their strengths and their weaknesses. And when they come across other young people, they challenge each other and they learn about each other. And some will pick on some people, and
Yep.
some people won't. Some people will go into a gang, some people go into sports. And I know it sounds like I'm being stereotypical, but it happens. And it's happening now too. But what you're saying is the most important thing is it's never turned off.
No.
It never goes off, and so they've got a completely different pressure. They can speak up, and people do, but then there's so many people out there, as they say, keyboard warriors, that will make comments and try and bring you down just the same way as you were in a playground.
No different.
Agree, and it's you raise a valid point there, Steve-O, where the people will tend to they are, it comes to fight or flight, right? Where children, teenagers, they're in a playground, a social event where they think they're safe, well, they should be safe, and then they do run into a bad egg that may cause a bit of a controversy, whether they're aggressive verbally or physically, whatever it might be. I guess the question then becomes is, do we feel that, or what are your thoughts, I should say, on when providing guidance, I guess, to children, and obviously your children are past that age, but mine are starting to move into that stage. When we provide guidance and a bit of encouragement to develop, do you tend to say to your children to grow, in lack of a better word, grow a thicker skin? Or do we say that we want them to avoid the situation, to remove themselves from the situation? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's such a good question.
But the reason why it's a good question is because there's an answer for both of those.
Correct.
Sometimes you do stand your ground, and sometimes it's better to walk away. And the trick is to teach
I
you.
should write a song about that.
Yeah, the trick is to try and teach your kids to make that decision, and it's tough because
that's the challenge.
Because the experiences I had as a kid, they're not having as kids today. Some of them the same, but not all. So it's tricky. It really is tricky, and it's a balancing act in life for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And the other complexity to that is, as much as we're in a fluid gender pool at this stage, where people can be a female, they can be a male, they can be trans, they can be this, whatever they want to be, they can choose to be. Yeah, but from my side, having a female gender as my child, and being able to, and a male as well, a son as a child, how do you give them the same sort of guidance, or do you tailor make that to, as society may say, a female or a male?
Stereotypical male,
Correct.
female.
So how do you deal with that?
That's a really good
Yeah,
question.
I have no answer to that.
I don't know.
There's no answer that's wrong.
No,
Yeah,
that's right. There's no.
no.
But I mean, you're asking from the perspective of how do you guide your children, or you already got that in mind? What's your thoughts on that?
So for me, I'm of the stereotypical mindset where I have my daughter, who I wish to make a strong lady who, she can then choose her own path. But at the end of the day, I wish to give her the values of being one to treasure themselves and to value themselves, and to not allow anyone or anything to degrade her in life, as well as I'll do with my son. I guess for me, I would take those steps to a certain point, and then from that point, they would then diverge into their own individual paths, and then I would guide them. Not to mention my wife. My wife would do that too, but I'm talking about myself specifically. Is I would guide them to then develop in the path that they so choose. But at the end of the day, I think for me, it is about having my children to have thick skin, because the world is not a perfect place, and it's not a safe place for everyone. No. In my mind, if I was to give my children a false sense that the world was that, then I feel that they would have pressures applied to them, and they wouldn't know how to deal with them as they grew up in life, and potentially affect them as time flew on.
So with what you just said there, the way you would talk to your children, the principles will be the same, but the way you talk to your children and the way your wife will and talks to your children, are they different?
I think that the message, or the I guess the guidance that they are provided, I would hope would be on the same lines. Obviously I can't control the exact words that come out of my wife as she can't control mine, but we can mutually guide our children down the same path. But I think what would affect that would be the way that the message is then conveyed.
Sure.
You know, if from a feminine standpoint, my wife may become a little bit more forgiving in the way language is put toward our children, whereas for me it would be a lot more different and a lot more sterner.
Firm.
Now, whether that's because of my experiences, my environmental factors that have surrounded me to develop the way I have today, that could be a possibility. And maybe one day we can get a psychologist on board to sit in here and with us, and we can quiz them all we like.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a
Really
good idea.
long podcast.
but at the end of the day, I think it comes down to personal values. And I understand that people like to say that everyone has a free choice, but for my opinion, children at the age of my kids right now, I don't think they know what a choice is.
No.
And they require a guidance.
Can I just point
And
out
most of it's by reflection. They watch you and they reflect off that. So everything you do, say, how you act, how you handle yourself with your wife in front of your kids, they absorb like a sponge, the whole lot.
Can I just point out, like, for example, we remember when we were young, Dad, Dad was there. He's a great dad, but I think fathers back in those days, they, were very different than they are now.
Yep.
But you just look at the difference between what Fred's saying. Now,
Could you imagine our dad saying that?
But did you think that way when your kids
No.
were
No.
6 months, 2 years old?
That's why these thoughts
This is
are
how
all
we're evolving,
generational.
and we're evolving.
And we're
Like,
evolving.
I wouldn't give that. I just thought I'll just raise my kids. Like, I'm their dad. I'll just look after them.
Yeah.
But did you either of you guys give it that much thought?
But in saying that, what you just said there, I'm just a dad and I'll bring them up, right? What did you have in mind, like when you were in that situation, if you can think back at all, what did that mean? What was it? Who are you?
The stereotypical
Right.
provider, protector,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
As a first,
That's
as a dad for the first time, who knows what you
Yeah.
got all these great ideas, but how do you actually know what you're going to do and how it's going to work and whether it works? And I look at my 20-year-old now and go, Jesus, he's learned nothing. He's learned nothing from what I've told him.
Yeah, well,
And if you're listening, buddy, it's true. I don't think he's learned anything from what I've told
He
him.
knows how to collect
For
cards,
20
doesn't he?
Yeah, for 20 years.
He's got a lot of chewing gum, hasn't he?
So you hope and pray that at some point the penny drops for them too when they turn a certain age, that it all sort of makes sense. And I think it happens too when men, gentlemen, boys don't generally really mature. And I'll pull a number out of my ass and maybe say 30, but I don't think the penny drops until that happens or you have a kid, I think.
Yeah.
Or it's much later if you don't have kids. So I just think the immaturity really doesn't kick in until a lot later.
I've got a 10-year-old, 19-year-old.
Yeah, that's right.
God bless him.
Do you think though that if you're a young man at say age 18 or 19 and you found out your girl's pregnant, that would mature you up real quick?
I think you just scare your shitless.
No, I mean
Dirty your undies real quick.
yeah, you shit yourself straight away. But I think you know what I mean.
It would hit you like a brick.
Yeah.
And I don't.
But because I mean,
You're never going to be prepared when,
No,
as a
no.
first-time parent, whether you're 18, 20, 30, 35. So it's not going to matter. That first bang is going to get you. It doesn't matter what age it is. But you can deal with it better when you're a little bit more mature or you've got maturity under your belt.
I agree, yeah.
So, and that's, if there was a kid out there who turned 18 and he became the dad of the century, kudos to them. That's a ripper effort if you can do that.
Yeah.
That is monumental.
I know of people who their daughter, I think her and her partner they may only be 21, 3 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and are killing it.
There you go.
Are
Good on
killing
them.
it.
Good on them.
Some people are just born for it, you know.
They're
I
made
mean,
to
they've had
produce.
the support of the parents, which obviously helps. But yeah, they're killing it.
So here's a segue. That's a good segue, Ada, into my next question. So the society says that life is like a diamond, or diamond
Box of chocolates or diamond?
It's like a diamond or a pentagon, and there are certain things that are required in life for a male or female to consider themselves successful. That is being a a person that's successful in their job, being a person that is wealthy financially, being a person that's knowledgeable, and being a person that's caring and loving. But they all work in sort of contradict each other. So someone that's wealthy tends to be someone that doesn't necessarily have much love or care for others. They tend to be a person all about me.
Insular.
Insular, correct. And they tend to succeed.
That's why I'm poor.
And then there's the people that that they want to have a lot of knowledge, but when the knowledge comes, it comes at a detriment of everything else, right? So, do you think there's ever, and I guess this is relevant to individuals because there's not a blanket answer for this, but what is your opinion on that? Do you feel that you can have an equal balance of love and financial wealth and a flurry of knowledge and being able to care? Do you feel that you can have that balance, or do you believe in what society says that there is?
When you say give, when you say wealth, then does that mean
Financial.
But the person themselves has made that themselves.
That's right.
Not that they've inherited something
Correct.
and they've been able to do the rest. Because if they had to go out and do that, then be an emotionally great person to their partner and their kids, and then be attached emotionally to everyone else in their lives.
That's a big ask, I reckon.
One of the things
you can do that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's important there is that when you talked about, someone who becomes wealthy, they invest a lot of their time. They're very insular, they're very all about themselves, and they use all their time to make that wealth, right? So while they're doing that, they don't have time for love and that's the important thing. So those that have a lot of love are using all their time in creating that family, that community, and sharing the love. They don't have time to make money.
Correct.
So time is the biggest thing here that's affecting those two. Let's say the two things that you're talking about. It's all about time and how much you invest your time into either one of those. And to sit somewhere in between means that you've got some love and you've got a bit of money, but not a lot of either.
Correct.
And I think that's where the rest of us all sit.
and it is. And it comes back full circle just before we have our break. It comes back full circle where the pressures and pains of society and modern day living sort of relate back to this diagram where people try and have an equal balance, but then they feel like the cup, the glass is only halfway full.
You have to give something up to get the other one.
But people aren't willing to do that.
So what are you going to give up? Which one are you going to give?
Right.
That's the real balance.
Correct.
Making sure, trying to get that bit right.
So
at the end of the day too, as you get older, for me is, you always dream as a 30-year-old that you're going to be a millionaire, you're going to have this, you're going to have all these things, houses.
I'm 51, still dreaming.
I'm still dreaming, yeah.
I play lotto every week. There's hope.
And the reality is that you become a bit more sentimental in life, I think, generally speaking, and you end up going, as long as I'm happy, healthy, my family's happy and healthy, you know what? I don't care.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's what you end up giving up because it just doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter in the end.
Yeah.
So guys, as a parting question for you guys to think about during the week is what does that balance look like for me? Everyone has different.
This is our advice to you because you're a young bloke.
I know where my balance is. I know where my house sits on that diagram. But for everyone listening, the question is, to find the inner peace and the inner love for themselves, which I think everyone is lacking these days. Where does your balance house live on that diagram? Do you want to be rich? Do you want to have love? Do you want to have knowledge? Do you want to have care? Like it's really up to the individual. And at the end of the day, to find that value that everyone is craving for day to day, that's a question I think everyone needs to ask. On that note,
we'll go on
let's
a break.
Have a break, guys.
No worries.
Thank you.
Come back soon.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to the left, right, and somewhere in between. Now, we've been talking about family, which has been great. And I think one of the key things we need to make known here is we're all first-generation Australian. Steve-O, Ada, MT, you three come from Italian heritage. For me, I'm first-generation Australian with a Filipino mother and a German father. So,
was your dad stationed in the Philippines in the Second World War?
Is that how that happened? No, my dad was actually an old dad, I'd say. So he had me in his early 50s, and my dad was actually in the Hitler's Youth in World War II.
The Hitler's Youth.
Yeah,
There you
correct.
go.
So there you go. So that's
I've never heard you say that.
yeah. So
So,
that's
so you're telling me your father was older than your Filipino mum?
Very much so.
That's rare to
Well,
see. Rare to see.
It is,
an
isn't
older gentleman with an Asian wife.
Yes,
Well,
younger Asian
in
wife.
in
yeah.
my previous employment, the running joke used to be that my father had bought my mother as a cleaner and ended up being my mother. So you make your determinations from that.
It's just something with the Germans. Arnold Schwarzenegger did the same thing.
Correct.
One question, is she a good cleaner?
Oh well, shit house. But
In that case, that didn't happen.
when I was a child, I had to clean my own frigging room. So I was the cleaner in that regard. But you know, I think one of the things that that Australia is well known for is its multiculturalism, and clearly here from this podcast right now, yeah, we've got Italian, German, and Filipino. You know, obviously I think it's the only time Germans and Italians have ever been so close back in World War II when we lost. But
When you say we, mate, we backed out last minute. we joined the winning side.
The Italians are the only warring country that have got tanks have got 8 gears in reverse.
Yeah.
When it came time to leave, we're out.
What's the difference between Italians and toast? You can make soldiers out of toast.
So I'm going to say, obviously, there are some things that we've all grown up with that sort of reminds us of our origins. So, obviously, once again, you gentlemen, I want to make it very clear, are considerably older than I, and I want to touch on. So when you boys were growing up, you know, back in those days, there wouldn't have been many Italians. I wouldn't have thought.
Not a lot.
School,
Yeah.
Not really, no.
We grew up in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, in the out eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and there weren't a lot. No,
Mitcham was where we grew up.
Yeah.
And it was sort of split in two, in that part of it was very ethnic and part wasn't.
a small part was ethnic, but yeah, and we lived
In the non-ethnic.
In the non-ethnic area.
and
Your parents got lost, did they?
not just on the outskirts of, like, we were on the other side of town.
Yeah,
wow.
Like it was, we were
Because usually,
Bucktar.
That
way?
the nationalities tend to group together, right?
Yeah.
There's like an Asian precinct, there's an Italian, there's a Greek,
Yeah.
there's a Maltese.
Yeah.
So how did
In those days, Box Hill was a very ethnic suburb. A lot moved to Box Hill. That's where they started. They did start obviously closer to the city when they first came. Fitzroy, you know, all those.
Carlton. A
suburbs.
lot of people,
Carlton.
Fitzroy and Carlton, when they first came, and then they moved out.
And then they jumped on a train and went, yeah, it's about 20 minutes from the city. We'll just live here. Which is effectively what my grandfather did. He jumped on the train and said, Blackburn's the place he wants to
So
live.
your grandfather was here too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And grandmother, she
and
came a bit later.
They
But
came later. She came later with the younger kids.
Wow.
But Dad came first with a couple of his kids, and my dad was one of them.
So your parents came here at a young age?
Yeah. So Dad
Wow.
came here with with my grandfather, and I think maybe his older brother.
Yeah, he did.
And then the older sister came as well.
Yep.
And they worked, 7 jobs and lived in 15 in a house and that. And then
created the foundation. for
slowly
them to come over.
but surely the other siblings came out. Dad was one of 7, but his whole family came out, which is kind of rare, I guess. You don't see it a lot. A lot of them stayed behind.
It's a lot of effort, especially for an unknown place.
Oh yeah,
It's very weird for people to just come in.
Mum came here when she was 18.
Yeah, okay.
She spent 3 months on a boat
Wow.
on her own.
Cool.
She was a classic story, a suitcase and $20 in her pocket, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But she had brothers out here that she was meeting. But yeah, 3 months on a boat. She stayed in her room pretty much the whole time.
Wow.
She was, young and naive, post-war, and she she always tells a story. She spent half the time on the boat, and she thought in her room. So I'd better get out, get a bit of fresh air. She walked out on deck. Some Italian guy started chatting her up. She shit herself and spent the rest of the trip in her room.
And that's a true story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So so obviously when your parents had come over here, obviously they had origins, they were very strong origin links to back home in Italy. Did they try and put that onto you guys as their children, or were they open to say this is Australia? Enjoy.
I think they assimilated quite well. Actually,
Yeah, they did, definitely.
They obviously shared their culture with us. We learned a lot about their culture. When I mentioned before about making the tomatoes and all that sort of stuff, it was a part of what we did, and even when we ate for dinner and all that sort of stuff, everything. Pretty much when we talk to other people who have got the same background, they have the same kind of stories, you know. So even though we were separated, we still had that cultural upbringing. But definitely my parents, I believe, assimilated really well. Mum and Dad both learned English really well.
Yeah.
Even to a degree, sometimes when Mum would talk to the principal or teachers at school,
Which was quite often.
they couldn't believe how well she spoke English. So I think they got to know all the neighbours.
And being a flaming redhead, she didn't look Italian.
Yeah,
either.
that's
really?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
She was
wow.
full on red. Yeah, so
Well, that's
so
a nickname.
actually her dad in town in Italy, they have nicknames, and his name was Red.
Oh, wow.
Because he had red hair as well. So everyone in town, if you came to town, you were a stranger, you came in and you said, and you met him before somewhere else, say you met him in the war or something, and you came and you said, I'm looking for Red. They'd be like, yep, he's up the road.
Yeah, when I visited, that's exactly what happened. So you'd walk through Mum's town. It's really tiny. I kept saying that to her, and she says, it's not that bad. It's pretty big. No, Mum, it's small. It's tiny. And you walk through town, and then everyone's gawking at you, wondering, because they know you're not local, and the first thing they do is, and they'll ask you, who are you? And all you have to say is, I'm a grandchild of Red, or in Italian, it's Ruscio, and they would know straight away who you were.
Yeah, wow.
No question.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. That's real. That's a real thing. That's how I experienced my trip in Mum's town.
Yeah, wow. So you know, my family is sort of similar, yeah, in a sense that my mum comes from a small sort of village in the Philippines and down south, and same thing. You know, if you go there. They might not think that it's a small village, but in comparison to a large city like Melbourne, for example, it's considerably small.
I'm telling you.
It's like a suburb.
I walked around Mum's town in 15 minutes, and Mum reckons
That
it's
was
not. Mum,
twice.
it's huge.
Twice.
It's huge. No, it's not really.
And you know, it's those little I guess those little unique moments in life when you actually realise that there is a history behind who you are, the name you have, the bloodline you have. And I think people tend not to cherish that as much as they probably should. With me being a Filipino mother, German father, as I mentioned, my dad was a young child in Hitler's youth in World War II. So that in itself has a large history that although it's not glorious, as some may say, but at the same time, he was a part of history and a person that might be able to would be able to speak about those moments, because there's not many people like that around these days. No. But also from my mother's side, they're not necessarily a third world sort of society, but they still. Living when she was young, she was she's second oldest of 12. Having living by candlelight. Having to my grandfather having to go and fish for their dinner for the night. Literally having rice for every single meal, and having they weren't the richest going around, so having to spread that food and that money over 12, it doesn't really go that far.
It doesn't go far.
No, not at all.
Lucky rice is cheap.
Well, that's exactly right. Correct. So I think one of the things that that people need to realise is not necessarily if you are Italian and whether you're or whatever it is, German, Filipino, English, for argument's sake. I think what Australians sort of need to understand and recognise is that Australia wouldn't be Australia without the other cultures that have been involved, whether that's Vietnamese and Chinese and Indians and the like. We all play our part to form who we are today.
Absolutely.
And for me, I'm definitely not that I forget about my heritage, but I'm definitely I consider myself as an Australian. I was born here, and I think that a lot of people tend to forget that we are, as that song is, we are one. We are Australian, and we're Australian because we all assimilate, regardless of our cultures. We all assimilate to that. But what you do see it time and time again where cultures tend to stick to themselves in the sense that they say, well, I'm I'm from, my family's from Greece, for argument's sake, and I'm Greek. But you're born in Australia. Your heritage might be Greek, but you're an Australian citizen. You are Australian. Sometimes look, I don't want to sound sentimental, but sometimes it does burn a little bit, because you think to yourself, but you're here, you're enjoying the freedoms and all the benefits that Australia can provide their citizens and their people, but you're still saying that you're
a different
Greek,
nationality.
you're a different nationality. Like, if you were, then why wouldn't you be back where you're from, and sort of embracing that culture? But you're not. You're here.
I mean, all of
what
us.
are your
I think
thoughts?
we're all born here.
Yep.
I'm Australian. I love the country. I was brought up here with everything that is Australian. I was fortunate enough to have a bit more creativity in my upbringing because of the culture that I had. So I learned a little bit of something that a lot of other people haven't, but everyone's got their own experiences. But I'm glad about that. And we actually had one of our cousins visit here, and when he came, I was what you're saying is, I was curious about how do they see us? He's come from Italy. He's born there. He's lived there. His family, but he's over there. And when he came, I asked him, how do you see us? Do you see us as Australian, or do you still see us as Italian? And at the end of it, we had a bit of a discussion about it, because he wouldn't answer the question straight up, because I think he had to think about it. And in the end, he came up with the fact to him was, I want you to be who you want to be. I don't want to label you. And I said, but do you, at the end of it though, do you see me as Australian? He goes, I think you are Australian because you were born here, but if you don't want to recognise as that's okay too. So it was pretty open-minded about the whole thing, about he's not trying
I'll tell you this.
label anyone.
I think he was being polite. I think he was trying not to offend, because from experience, being in Italy, you're Australian, mate.
Right.
You are not Italian.
The interesting thing is, in his house, there's a really large hill at the back of his place that you can see a lot of the village.
I know what you're going to say. I know what
They
you're going
have
to
an
say.
Italian flag up there, and they have an Australian flag up there.
Yeah.
And the Australian flag is to reflect the Italians that went to Australia and lived their life in Australia. So they celebrate both.
And he feels that bond because of us.
Because of
Yeah.
us.
But I tell you, you ask, do you feel Australian? I knew I was Australian. I always thought that I consider myself Australian, but the defining moment was when Australia played Italy in the World Cup.
And I went for Australia.
I went for Australia.
I was sort of torn, but then when Australia lost, I went,
You're not.
fuck,
You're not.
I'm an Aussie. I'm an Aussie. Proud of my heritage. Love my heritage.
And the following
Italy,
week,
food, fashion, all that.
who did you go for the following week?
Oh, in the final, I was.
Italy. They're my second team.
My second one.
But that's Steve O mentioned that my parents assimilated. I think they more so than most ethnics did, to the point where Dad, I don't know how long he was here. It wasn't long, but they already gave him the nickname Foster's, and he loved it. He thought it was the best.
Foster Lager.
For the rest of his life, he introduced himself as Foster.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they really did embrace it. I think that's a generational thing too. When the WOGs, if I'm allowed to say that, come out.
Settle down.
We were
wogs.
Yeah, and we copped it,
We copped it from
At school?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
And thank God for the boat people.
They sort of saved us.
The Vietnamese took the heat off us, and we're like,
It was pretty much the picking on me.
it's all yours. and you see it happen. And now the Vietnamese, they've integrated well, and we all eat at their restaurants. We love their food. They're great people. Now you see it coming with the Sudanese.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that, Australia
time
as
it'll-
a nation, the next generation of Sudanese will come through, and they're already playing footy.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll be eating
We've all-
Sudanese food. And,
Yeah, we've all been through it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great learning curve, right? Because even at school there was Wogs versus Skips.
Yeah.
You know, that sort
Always.
of competition. And
You're not allowed to say wogs, eh?
oh, well, I just did.
Well, he's half German. The European.
Yeah,
connection.
yeah, exactly.
Well, this half then.
We did fight in half a war together.
we share same blood. That's but I think they're great lessons to be learned, because one, not only does it obviously it sort of heightens your respect for your culture, but at the same time it builds that camaraderie, because it's more of a it's a common sort of thread and knowledge between people that, you know, we know that, you know, you are from a different country or you've got a different background than we are, but at the end of the day, we are just people. Yeah, and at the end of the day, the people, we are what makes Australia as opposed to Australia makes us. You know, and if we didn't have our differences, then we would, you know, we'd probably be like an America or you know, like the UK, for example, where, you know, we're British and that is it. You know, you need to obey by that. But I think, you know,
But we are different because, you know, you can talk when you talk about that, the British, you know, they're British, but they've been like that for I don't know how long. You know what I mean? It's like
they've been British.
All their
lives.
All their lives.
Well, no, I know, but I'm saying that you go back to 20,000 years. I don't know if it was.
They sent all the shitheads here.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't know where it all really started. If you go back, right? But obviously, here we know who was here before us.
That's right.
The indigenous, and so you know, we've come in, and
That's a topic for another day.
it is. But we've come in, we've made our bit of land here, and you know, grew things and had our family and all that sort of stuff. So
You mean stole our bit of land?
well, just for your knowledge, Steve-O, the UK, the Great Britain, was named Great Britain on the 1st of May, 1707. So if you think about that, and then when Australia was discovered, 1901 or whatever it was, it was a
What do you
1901.
Captain Cook?
Hang on. Are we discovered or when we would become like a
Or
federation?
when we became
is this a factual program?
It was 1901.
Has anyone done any homework on this?
Yeah, federation. That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah, when Australia-
it was discovered or stolen back in 1770. Yeah.
Yeah,
Captain Cook came in the 1700s.
but when Australia
correct,
was Australia,
When we got our first document that said we are
so
this.
someone apologised to me for accusing me for getting it wrong.
I think it might have been the 1st of January actually.
No.
Yeah, I think so. Google.
Google,
Yeah.
get on it, Chew,
Anyway,
man.
I wanted to segue into something else while we're just reflecting on what you said about.
Hang on, I'm waiting for an apology here.
You
Come
might
on,
get,
Steve,
you might get one from me.
I haven't gone too far in, but I've actually looked here. It's 1606, the Dutch first discovered
no.
Australia.
That was Van Diemen's land.
Yeah, when we became a federation.
Dirk
Yeah.
Hartog.
Oh, you want too much
Cartog.
information.
Dirk Hartog, his name is.
Oh, was it?
I'm making that up, but I think I'm right.
I'm pretty sure I've
Talk
been.
amongst yourselves.
Anyway.
Pretty sure I've been a successor
So
in
let
trivia, my friend.
Talking, yeah, very, very true. We're talking about that generational thing when we were younger and growing up. You know, I don't want to steal anything from any Italian comedians who have made good money out of telling jokes about wogs bringing food to school. But we did. Like, you know, we were embarrassed to eat our salami in front of the Anglo-Saxons there because you cop shit for it. So we were embarrassed to go there with our salami sandwiches or our provolone sandwiches or whatever the hell Mum would
I don't
put
know
in
what
there.
that is, but-
Correct, it's cheese.
And now they're going to the deli. Can
now-
I get 100 grams of prosciutto?
I'm backing it in. Every one of those
Prosciutto.
Anglo-Saxons at school eat more salami than me.
So I've just
In
found
more
it.
ways than one.
No one eats more salami than you, my friend.
The first settlement at Sydney consisted of about 850 convicts and their marine guards
Hang
and
on,
officers.
hold up. We're
led-
talking federation. When Australia
you just
became a
Google it?
federation.
Are we
Are we
recording
talking about
this?
federation or talking about when that was first discovered?
Yeah, we know that.
Federation.
1770. Federation.
1788.
Well, they landed,
January
no,
26th,
They landed
first-
in 1770,
Yeah,
but
se-
then they settled in 1788.
So the first fleet.
Yeah, 1901, 1st of January, Federation of
Federation.
Australia.
Geez,
And then,
Gee, Fred, that was pretty easy.
It was. It was.
hang on.
True man, no.
But I was
True
right.
man.
I was right. 1st of January?
Yeah,
Yes.
correct. Of 1901. So I apologise.
Shit ass.
Apologise.
Oh, thanks, Steve. January 1st. Yep, we just got word January 1st, folks.
News in.
Well done.
You bringing the Herald?
But you're and you
See now,
raise,
how many people will understand that?
Nobody. Nobody.
and you raise a valid point, right? So when Australia have this Australia pride and they're like, yeah, we were Australian, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, when they go to delis or they go to supermarkets, I want some ham, I want some prosciutto, I want some this, I want some that. None of that stuff was here, mate, until
I'd like to see where the coffee culture and the food culture would be in Melbourne if not for
The
Exactly.
influence
Correct.
of immigrants,
yeah. Or
There'd
even
be-
foes, barmies that are coming out the
God.
back end.
all the restaurants would only be open Sunday because they only knew how to do a Sunday roast.
And it'd be only one type.
That's going to cause us to.
Right in with your comments to the socials.
So can you imagine the other cultures though? Say the Chinese. I know we call them dim sims.
Yeah.
But they call them dim sum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, so there's things that we say that they'd be sitting there laughing at us going,
Absolutely.
you don't know what you're talking about.
Bloody round eyes.
We had to change everything just to suit you guys, you know.
And you know, it really is interesting, and I think people need to stop and smell the roses to really get an appreciation of what Australia does provide, and what Australia as a nation and its people does offer people when at times of need. You know, we're very generous. We provide great healthcare. You know, we provide food when food becomes scarce. You know, we band together in bushfires and floods and all these sorts of things. If you have these scenarios, you look at these tornadoes in the US, for example, and stuff like that. There is very minimal help with one another from a town perspective, yes, but you don't see people travelling from states and from other countries coming over to go and give them a hand, because it's not the same thing. It's
not the Aussie way.
No, it's not.
But I think that's too in America when you see, you know, what we see here in Australia on TV and on movies and that, and they'll name the place that they're from, you know, and that's who they are.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's instead of USA. It's they internally they talk about I'm this. I rarely say I'm a Victorian.
Yeah.
Rarely say it.
No, I'm pretty happy, proud to be.
No, but I'm
Victorian.
saying
I'd never want anyone to mistake me for a South
Yeah, I know,
Australian.
but what I'm saying is you don't go out and say it. You know what I mean? It's
All right,
kind
I just
of like
thought I'd
New
just do-
South Welshman. I'm happy to give them a go. Yeah. What a shit state.
Okay, so we just lost half the audience.
So you know, I think
Or they may come and phone us.
I think as
and argue.
a sort of a passing sort of thought, maybe we need to give Australians a fair go and give people an opportunity to obviously flourish and embrace within the country we all live in. Because I think it'll make a greater place, not only for us as we are now, but obviously for our children, our children's children, as generations keep growing. And not to get too sad and soppy about it, but I think that's what we need. There needs to be a lot more happiness in the world, and I think that'll alleviate a lot more pressure.
The sad part is, and I don't want to go down this path, but
you will.
Racism is still rife. It still exists.
Yeah.
It still happens. Some of the older generation probably let it go through to the keep and these days because it really doesn't mean much to them anymore. But, it still exists, and our Indigenous are a lot of times on the back end of a lot of that. And the Sudanese cop it as well. One incident and then the rest of the whole community is tarred. So it does still exist, and it's shit house, and we need to get better at that as a country.
Yeah, no, agree. Well, on that note, let's take another break, and we'll be back with some more Left, Right, and Somewhere in Between. Welcome back to Left, Right, and Somewhere in Between. I'm your host, Big FS, and welcome again, gang. So, look, this week's been a hurler of a week, and I must admit, like the only time you can really just chill out and relax is when you're just checking out some TikTok videos, checking out some social media, and just getting away from all this COVID shit. Yeah. For 2.5 years, I think we've all been suppressed, whether it's by the government or by the medical departments or whatnot, because COVID's been a huge pain in everyone's ass. Right?
I didn't know we had so many epidemiologists
correct.
and experts and professors in fucking diseases. Dead set. I did not know we had that many people running this country who were epidemiologists.
And then they can't cure cancer.
And they can't cure anything.
And can you imagine when they went to school that people were saying, what are you ever going to do?
What are you studying for?
What are you going to
Epidemiologist. One day we're going to have a disease.
Yeah.
Steve-O's got erectile dysfunction. He can't even sort
I
it
can
out.
fix that with a blue pill.
So can I just use this to apologise to the listeners for my coughing,
COVID.
which you may have heard in the background earlier. I got COVID 3 months ago and am still coughing. So fuck COVID. It can eat a dick.
Right? Don't worry about that.
I had COVID just under 4 weeks ago, I think. And it's still in my throat. It still annoys me.
Is that
and I got
COVID or
just
semen?
the COVID.
Could be something else.
You know what? As soon as that left my mouth, I've gone. Oh,
the only thing left in
That's what left behind.
I knew you guys were going to go there straight away.
You just lob them up, mate.
Straight over the fence.
Nothing's fucking changed.
So, COVID, obviously, we've all experienced COVID. We've all, I'm assuming we've all had to put up up with its bullshit and its restrictiveness on life, it obviously adds to the stresses we were speaking about in the first segment, and obviously there's nothing really that we can do about it until the governments pull their finger out to actually let us live as normal people. But as people deal with these sort of pressures and pains, the social media, as we also spoke about in the first segment, does play a specific part in everyone's lives. I think it's very rare to speak to people that aren't on social media. But guys, what are your thoughts? Have you seen anything interesting on social media that want to?
I'm on all of it.
I've noticed. I don't know if it's the algorithm, how it works. TikTok, a lot of the flat Earth theories and that. It is.
Coming out.
Oh, it's.
But if it's the algorithms, it means that you've used to watch that.
Well, yeah, that's right. I'm watching. I'm watching these videos in amazement, going, they really think the Earth is flat,
And they do.
and they do. They genuinely do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
I think there was a guy on TikTok actually that had actual equations to verify that the Earth was actually flat, and he was giving numbers like degrees, angles, all this sort of crap.
And then there was a documentary that actually had someone like that on there, and they decided to do a test.
They debunked their own theory.
They debunked their own theory.
Really?
Yeah, it's an amazing doco. It's right at the very end.
So-
they're trying
so
to see. They've
the
set up this
experiment
big
was.
pole.
Yeah. You go.
And
Yeah.
they tried to set up this big pole, and they said, if this is flat, we should be able to see from here to, and I can't remember how many kilometres away it was.
You've fucked it up already, but anyway.
Ada, you keep going.
So they got a laser at a certain height. Let's say it was 2 meters, and they picked a sea level, and then 2 kilometres or whatever it was down the road, they set up another like a board, and aimed a laser at 2 meters, and then they said, right, now the Earth's flat. Halfway, we're going to put another board with a hole 2 meters, and that laser should shoot through the hole because the Earth is flat. Guess what happened? And then so the lasers missed the hole. It's below the hole by an inch or so, and they're going, no, we must have our calculations right. No, the Earth isn't fucking flat, mate. That's what your experiment just proved.
But it was, you got to watch it. It's
And
so
now,
funny.
and now the flat earthers claim that documentary was made and was basically set up to
Wasn't made by flat earthers.
It was made to made the flat earthers look stupid.
Jesus Christ.
It worked.
But like it's credit to everyone that wants to make content. Obviously, we're making a podcast. We've got socials. Pardon me. We've got just like everyone else. We followed the trend. But I guess the question then becomes is, this content is stuff that people absorb. Now, whether they listen to it, whether they watch it, whether they actually absorb any of it is obviously a question mark. But do you think?
I hope they do.
Well, take the flat earther scenario, for example. Do you think if those presenters, let's call them presenters because they're making documentaries about this stuff, do you think if they can make a compelling argument that may sway individuals that are currently on the fence or somewhere in between, wink, wink, that may sway them to believe otherwise?
Absolutely.
It does happen.
Yep, I believe so.
It does happen.
Absolutely.
And
Because people are gullible.
Yeah.
People are stupid and they're gullible.
And this is the thing, what you said is really important, is that they make a compelling argument without facts. It's just a compelling argument. That's all it is. And people get sucked into it.
Yeah, like one of them, and I must admit, I'm on the fence on this one. So one of the
It is round.
arguments. What's that?
The Earth is round.
No, I'm definitely a round Earth person. But no, one of the question marks to society is about evolution, right? So everyone believes genetically that we've progressed and advanced from Homo sapiens and so on and so forth. The argument that people are making is that evolution was accelerated by the use of monkeys or Homo sapiens what's that? Ardipithecus, I think is the other word, eating mushrooms, having a psychedelic trip, and then evolving into who we are today. Whether they've seen a vision, they've been able to, deal with tools, create fire, come up with a verbal dialogue.
The psychedelic gave them knowledge.
Yeah, correct.
In some sense.
It's interesting because I've watched a couple
had
of docos.
mushrooms?
No,
I was going to say, did FS have mushrooms for lunch?
Yes, mushrooms all the time.
I read. I
I
watched
don't know what you're talking about.
I watched a doco that said that one of the things that enabled the, again, what you said, the Neanderthal man, whatever it was, to develop the brain was when they first learned to hunt animals and eat meat. And it's the protein in the meat that actually helped them to develop their brains. But also, it could be that too. It could be a combination of these things, and it just progressed it even further. I don't know, but it's interesting what you're talking about there, because I think they even worked out when that intelligence happened. It was something like 20,000 years ago. I think it was quite some time ago, but not in comparison to the dinosaurs. But yeah, so that and it developed quite exponentially. It wasn't just like something that took a long time, like what they talk about with evolution. This happened quite quickly, and they developed very fast. So yeah, that's it. That's what I remember from the doco.
And one of on back onto social media, there's obviously a multitude of things we can learn from there. One of them is, why does people failing at doing certain things attract a lot of attention?
Oh, Mark and I have this thing like watching people hurt themselves. I think it's freaking hilarious.
It is funny.
It is.
Every time someone hurts themselves, it's funny.
So
It doesn't matter what.
So that raises a question, right? So is that a problem with society, or is that human nature to laugh at other people's mishaps?
I think it's human nature.
Human nature.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and as long as it's not it's like
Absolutely.
doesn't kill them, but
Yeah,
as long as
yeah,
it's something
yeah.
that you can see, they've squashed their finger or they've stubbed their toe or they've done something really stupid and bumped their head, it's fully hilarious. The whole time is hilarious.
I'm sure when it's happening to you, it's not.
It's not correct.
But everyone else watching, it's a crack up.
And
Absolutely.
it's with those sort of situations. Okay, so take it on the flip side then. What would compel you to post such a video, knowing that it would get a reaction like it does?
Because modern day social media is all about likes and that attention component. And the more attention you get, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, gets your popularity. And that's what people do it for. There's so many people out there who will take their top off and do what they do to get the popularity, or they'll
It pays the
post
bills.
something
What can I
of someone
say?
getting hurt, and they'll do the
Are you
same
talking from
thing.
experience, Aidan?
He takes his top off all the time.
So I guess maybe down the track we might do something stupid and absurd like that. But there is.
Light your ass hairs.
I don't know.
Haven't done
clean.
that one.
I'm shaved, I'm clean. But there are a number of different scenarios that people will subject themselves to, and I think that when people do that, what's the reaction then if let's say you do something stupid and something hysterically fails, and now you're known as the person that hysterically failed. So how does that work?
So before the podcast started before, we had a bit of a laugh, didn't we? At someone's expense.
We did.
Yes.
We did.
So how did that make you feel when that happened?
Disappointed.
Yeah, it was disappointed at first.
Shit house, really. But
we burnt the time we'll never ever get back. But I guess from when you look at it in a grand scheme, you just think, well, it's sort of. It's a minor blip on the radar, so it becomes a funny fact because it's not us; it's someone else.
it's we're laughing at.
Yeah, but I think let's say there's something like what's a common video that we've all sort of had a look at and laughed at. Maybe
I reckon there was one going around where there was a guy had a forklift. And he was taking something out of a truck, and somehow what he was trying to lift out and it shows him and it shows him flying into the warehouse, and you can do nothing but laugh, right?
So if you were in that person's shoes, would you be one to release that information or that footage?
You might not, but potentially lose your job.
But see, this is the thing. It was in another country where it's not really worried about.
H&S security.
That's right. So, that's a tough one. I guess if I recorded something and someone got hurt and it was funny and they laughed about it afterwards and I said, can I post it? And they agree to it. Well, off it goes. You know what I mean? But would I just post it without telling them? Probably not.
Yeah.
Would you write any kind of thing on social media without telling people if it's detrimental to?
I've gone blank.
Like
What are you talking about?
reviews of any
Just a
kind?
question. I don't just off the cuff. I don't know what made me think of that.
Absent-mindedly, yeah.
Absent-mindedly.
Probably.
Well, you
I think it's very considerate of you,
Was I-
Steve.
was I
ask someone's-
drunk?
to ask someone's permission before posting stuff. I think they'd be very considerate.
if
It
you were
would be.
if you were under the weather, would you have done it?
Depends if I know what I'm doing.
Did you have a glass of wine at dinner?
That's a whole other discussion now.
So I don't know. Let's. How often do people put reviews up? Do you put reviews? Do any of you put
Nah.
reviews?
I do. I do mainly when I'm very unhappy with the service or with
Did you have an experience recently where you were unhappy with
We won't mention this
a meal you
establishment.
got or a steak you got?
yeah. So I guess my most recent one was a while ago. It was a few months ago. I went to a steak restaurant in around the Docklands somewhere, and they squeezed us in a table for two right in the corner where no one could see, and we sat there for a good 30 minutes before we were even. Well, we didn't even get served, so I just got up and walked out.
Really?
Went to the restaurant next door and then sat there eating whatever it was, and wrote my review, sent photos. Oh, actually, no. Then there was the experience
At that
It's
other
a
location.
bit of a theme now.
The incident at Crown Casino, yeah, where
Wow.
I actually very, very established venue, and
Eventually, we'd like Crown Casino to be a sponsor of this.
no, it wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't Crown itself. It was one of the restaurants around there. But I took photos and everything. So yeah.
So we definitely do it when things are bad, but do we ever do it when things are good?
Yes.
Always.
So when
Always.
I
Never.
was
Tell me when.
Never.
Yeah, exactly.
when
That's
I was
exactly.
when I was doing reviews,
Yeah, ban now. Forever.
I'll get back on it. Don't worry. When I was, if it was really great, I'd say it, and if it was really bad, I'd say it. And I had, I had something like about 48,000 views of my reviews.
48,000?
Yeah,
Get fucked.
I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah, I had so many.
What was the cuisine?
It was a whole. I used to review everything. I'd go somewhere just in takeaway and
fuck do you
I'd put a
think you
review. I know. I reviewed so much.
A
In the end,
bitter,
I had
twisted old man. He's what he
no,
is.
not at all. I used to say good things and whatever it was, whatever the experience was, I expressed it, and that was it.
Okay, let me add another layer to it then. Okay, you can do reviews, right, for bad or good.
Yeah.
But nature tends to when things are negative, we tend to go hard at the paint. When things are positive, we might just skim it on the top. Is that what you do?
No, I didn't, but I know what you're talking about because this is a topic that where social media is a bit of a villain because they utilise that to get negative messaging out to people, which has, I think, in America it's been divided because of social media. The algorithms that they use push out certain information to certain people who are starting to lean one way or the other in politics, and so they get fed more information to push them further one way and push the other people further the other way. And that's what's happening, and it's that negative thing because for whatever reason, things that are negative attract our attention, and that could be an inherent thing that danger. We're born to keep away from dangerous things because we want to stay alive. And what you were talking about before, flight or fight. So that's something inherent in us. So we look for things that are dangerous, things that are bad, because we want to know, is that something I need to stay away from? So that kind of stuff attracts us. Things that are going great, you don't really need to focus on, but you do need to focus on things that are negative, and that's something that's inside us.
But I also think that people like to see something negative so they can have an argument.
So
They'll
Everyone
read
loves an
something.
argument, though.
So they'll read something, and whether they actually believe it or not, they'll just want to argue.
Well, it's funny you say that because there's
Not
some
funny, it's real.
No, interesting you say that. Then is because I know someone that we would just argue over topics just to argue,
Just to pass the time.
just to pass the time. Because we used to drive together to see our ex-partners. And in the car, we used to sit there and quite often say, let's argue about something.
We'd be driving home late at night and sort of...
Oh, so this is between you two?
Yeah, between us. We'd be driving home late at night and was both feeling a bit tired and let's find something to talk about. So we would pick a topic and we would just debate it, regardless of what...
We didn't care what the topic was.
Where we stood on topic, we'd just argue.
But debating is good, and debating is a skill that's been lost in society these days, because no one likes to get on the bad side of anything, right? But at the same time, debating, there is no right or wrong. Debating is opinionated, right? It's based off the individual. It's about providing a compelling argument, like we were saying, and providing points or facts in ways to back that up. But people want to stay away from that because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They want to stay in the safe place, and they want to be the vanilla guy, the somewhere in between guy, the leaf, some people may say. So I think debating is good, and I think that's where as society has it. I think that's what will build the building blocks to improve it. If people are able to have the direct conversations with individuals, share your point of view, I share my point of view. At the end of the day, we may not agree, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you've had your say, I've had my say, and we can then part ways. Things don't need to get physical. Things don't need to get abusive or aggressive unless you're at the footy and you're a Collingwood supporter. Then I'm all good for that. But
and get kicked out.
Get kicked out with your kid. But you don't need to. You don't like. I think debating is something that should be encouraged, and I think debating allows people to use their words as opposed to their fists or their frustrations.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of I thinks here. But I'm by no means a specialist in the way.
I think you're a specialist in the argument.
I do. I don't mind talking.
You don't mind good banter.
Even if I'm wrong.
If we barracked for the different teams, it would have been on.
It would, 100%.
We argue and we barrack for the same.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, what do you mean if you barrack for different teams? It'll be on.
We argue and we barrack for the same team.
It's shocking.
That's because he doesn't know anything about football.
100%. I know. When you're sitting at ground level, ladies and gentlemen, and you can see everything, 100%. 100%. Look, let's make a closing argument. We don't want to put people to sleep here. The closing argument is, when you're sitting on ground level, do you get a better experience and a better view of the ground than you would at, say, level 2?
I see what you did there, Fred. I see what you did there. It's not, the question is, where do you get a better view at the footy? Ground level or level 2? Not when you're sitting at ground level.
Hang on. But wait a minute. Is the argument the view or the experience?
I guess it's a little from column A, a little from column B.
Everything, yeah.
I love watching the game and watching how the players place themselves, where the ball goes, how they set up, and all that kind of stuff. So I like to sit on level 2.
It's weird that just AFL coaches, people that actually need to do it for a job, are on boundary side.
Not all of them.
Sometimes in the coach's box. Up around level 2.
Sometimes. Yeah. But they're nowhere. They're nowhere. They're on the ground level where all the champions sit.
So Fred fancies himself as a bit of a coach. That's
100%.
What I'm hearing.
If you're on my team, you're guaranteed a cup, that's for sure.
But I will say I had a great experience watching a game on a big screen on a Friday night, having people around all swearing and carrying on and enjoying the game more than at the ground.
Nah.
That's because it was the people you're with.
That's true. That's true.
So the experience can sometimes be who you're with.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Do you think when the siren went, where do you reckon there would have been more emotion?
Well, there was one coward all the way at the back of the
he came
building
back.
over there.
He came back.
What about the Adelaide game?
That's true.
Look, that was
again, into that game.
I was with some people.
That
who
would
were
have been better.
questionable, but
That would have
okay.
been better on level 2, but ground level.
Behind the goals, behind the Collingwood cheer squad, you can't get better than that. I'm telling you now.
And just so you know, if you ever watch the replay of Nick Dacos,
Yeah.
you can actually see someone behind the goal standing up.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, guys, we all barrack for the same team. I know we've skewed off topic here, but we all barrack for the same team. We are all black and white army, mad crazy supporters, and
Important that supporters. We've all got a membership.
that's true. Well,
Wow, membership of sorts.
when you're a supporter of the club and a supporter of the actual league, that's two different things. But
I'm wealthy enough to be able to do both.
Oh, you do both.
I do both.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I think as a closing statement, I think we want to make a reach out to anyone out there, any race, any culture, any gender, who wants to listen to four average blokes
Stooges.
talk gibberish of a week, and just to help you chill out and relax and just get yourself grounded back down to earth after a hard week's work. You can listen to us at all channels, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you want to listen to us. By all means, look up Left, Right, and somewhere in between, and we'll be there talking away and accepting any sort of invitations from anyone that wants to have their say on the podcast.
And any feedback will be greatly appreciated.
Indeed. So, guys, once again, thank you very much for listening to Left, Right, in between. You've got Steve-O,
G'day.
Ada,
Sorry.
and MT.
Did he just say something really?
Yeah, I was meant to say goodbye. See you later.
Did you just wave?
So once again, we'll retake that one.
Try that again.
We've got Steve-O,
See ya.
we've got Ada,
Catch
and
up.
we've got MT.
Thanks, everyone.
And also FS. And we want you to have a wonderful weekend, and we'll speak with you next week. Take care, guys. Thank
See
you.
you, boys.